Hey everyone, so like I said, my name is Yousef. I'm super excited to be here because I get to talk about the science behind a craft, and that craft is stand-up comedy. When I was first starting out, like 3 or 4 years ago, I was doing improv at the time, and my coach looks at me, my mentor at the time, and says, Yousef, improv and stand-up are not the same thing. And he compared it to music. He said, improv is more like jazz, right? It's improvised. Everything kind of comes and goes. You work with each other. But stand-up is like classical music. Everything is scripted. Everything you see has been polished. Even the small little interactions with the audience over time, it's all done. Now, I'm young. I have an ego. I'm like, I don't need to hear this. I go on stage, say whatever I want, and they will die, right? They will fall over laughing. But as an insurance policy, I came up with one bit. I swear to Ted, this is how dumb the bit was. It was literally about giving a banana to a monkey. That was it. Like, there was no joke, there was no nothing, and I was so confident that this was going to make people fall on the floor. So it's my first show. I get on stage. I get the audience going. I do the bit. Nobody laughs. I have a quarter-life crisis, and my brain says, do anything else. So I go off on this like philosophical sermon about how as a society we need to come together like water drops on a windshield. That as a society, we are not going to get to the bottom of the windshield unless we come together. We just don't have enough liquid on our own. And the rest was like a blur. I don't really remember what happened, but I learned my lesson. and the lesson was I got to come up with components, ways to create humor. And that's what I'm going to talk about with you today. I'm really excited. I wanted to get dressed up, but like not too dressed up, because in a regular tie, I look like a bouncer at Chuck E. Cheese. It's nothing against bouncers at Chuck E. Cheese. It's a very neat profession. I mean, if you think the crackhead is bad, you've seen a 5-year-old that ran out of coins at the arcade, you can understand the need of this profession. This kid just scaring the other kids like, hey, how's it going? Can I have a couple coins? I should play that game over there. Is that okay? No, I'm good. Oh, come on, man. Just a couple coins. That's all I need. I'll split the tickets with you, man. I promise. Just help me out. That's when the bouncer would come in. Excuse me, sir. Is there a problem here? You are causing a disturbance. No, man. I'm just having a conversation. I need that. You got tickets, man. You got coins. Help me out. I need the coins. That's when you tase him, bring him down to the ground. You want to control the situation. He's not a bad man. He's made a few wrong decisions in life, and the gentleman needs help. You know what I mean? So you bring him up, and dust him off. The lost and found is that way, son. Hope you can find yourself some help. So my question to you now is this. In the water drop bit and the Chuck E. Cheese bit, we use the term bit instead of joke because a bit can contain multiple jokes with multiple punchlines. In these two bits, did they seem related at all? They didn't because of subject matter. But what if I were to tell you that they both use the exact same two components of comedy? And those two components are novel imagery / novel comparison, as well as what I like to call overlapping. So what's novel imagery / novel comparison? Essentially, it works like this. You create an image or a comparison in the audience's mind of something they would never normally do on their own. But within the context of what's being discussed, it makes perfect sense. You would never imagine a bouncer working at Chuck E. Cheese. But within the context of me and what I would look like in a tie, given my height and my stature, it makes complete sense. You would never compare water drops to society, but within the context of coming together to reach your goals, it makes complete sense. You would not compare a 5-year-old to a drug addict, but within the context of what's being discussed, it makes sense, and that clash creates the humor. The second component is called overlapping, and the way that works is all you do now is you've created these two things you can compare. You find as many equivalencies within them as you can, and it works like this. What's the equivalent of a society reaching its goal in the water drop? Well, it's getting to the bottom of the windshield. What's the equivalent of the idea that you can't do it on your own? Well, it's maybe you don't have enough liquid on your own. What's the equivalent in the Chuck E. Cheese bit of the money you need to get drugs? That's an obvious one. The coins. What's the drugs? The video games. What's the rehab clinic? The lost and found. And then all you do is you take the nonverbals of one situation. I acted like the drug addict, but I overlap all of the verbals from the other scenario. So instead of saying, man, I'll pay you back, man, I say, I'll split the tickets with you, man. And that overlapping creates that humor. Moving on. The next way that comedians make a lot of humor, you see this in newspaper cartoons a lot, is misdirection. The way misdirection works is you essentially lead the audience in one direction and then they're expecting something to happen and then you take a complete detour. And that clash creates humor. I want you to see if you can spot the misdirection in the following bit. So I'm a married man, happily married man. It's nice to be settled down. I'm a one-woman man, but it wasn't easy because, you know, brother's quite the player. And it was because of this piece of equipment right here. This is a Bay magnet, it's titanium. I don't even know if that's magnetic, but every single day, these women would just come up to me. They're throwing themselves on me just like,
Well, hi there. That's a snazzy chair you got going on there.
baby, that's titanium. It's got them optional brakes in case you don't want to go backwards.
Well, that's pretty snazzy. I bet you get around pretty good.
Well, my physical therapist does call me an inspiration, you know what I'm saying? So you can see where the misdirection took place. You thought the bit was going in one way, and when it set up a flirtatious scene, it goes a different way, and the clash creates humor. That bit also utilizes another component of comedy. I'm not going to touch on it too much, because it's very well known, and that is truthfulness. The truth is funny, and that's truthfulness in personality, i.e. the impression. That's truthfulness in mentality. Some comedians are very good at helping us to remember the way we used to think at a particular time or in a particular situation or at a particular age. Truthfulness in all its components. In my impression of the senior citizen, I could have overdone it. I could have been like, well, hi there, right? But it wouldn't have been funny. If you just take the time to see how can I truthfully represent this person, that subtle difference, it creates that humor. The last component that I want to talk about is more of a piece of wisdom than a component, and that is basically the lesson that I talked about in the beginning. No matter underneath your funny language that you use, underneath whatever it is that you have, your look, your mannerisms, you have to be able to check that box and say, I have a joke. A lot of amateur comedians take inspiration from life, but then nothing else happens. They just retell a story, and the audience doesn't get it because they didn't understand the premise, because they didn't understand the nuances, right? And this is what we have to clarify in making our humor. So in the following bit, which utilizes misdirection followed by overlapping, followed by truthfulness, I want you to see if you can spot where the bit ends, or excuse me, the inspiration from life, the event in my life, it's a true story, ends, and where the joke begins. And then ask yourself, would I have laughed if he didn't actually do the joke? Would I have just laughed if he stopped at the event? So here we go. So I'm having a meeting with a colleague of mine, and we're talking about marriage. We get sidetracked topic of marriage, and she looks at me, she goes, Yousef, can I see a picture of your wife? And I was like, sure. So I pull out my phone, I show a picture of my wife. My wife wears the hijab, so she looks at me in utter disbelief, and she goes, you're Muslim? I was like, yeah. And she's like, really? I did not expect you to be a Muslim. Is that on purpose? Now my brain's like, what? I had to make a very quick calculation because she meant one of two things by that statement. Either she meant I was Muslim by accident, which, who knows, it could be an epidemic. Pharmaceuticals should come up with a pill that helps you determine whether you're accidentally Muslim. Side effects include accidentally becoming Christian, accidentally becoming Jewish, accidentally becoming atheist, and in rare but serious cases, increased frequency of hip fracture. I'll have to ask my doctor if it's right for me. The second thing that she could have meant was that I had not disclosed that I was Muslim on purpose, in which case my response is like, whoa, 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 Donald Trump's not president yet, I don't have to say nothing. I'll be at the grocery store, some lady's like, why does your meat say halal on it? That was the name of the cow, you don't know meat, right? So if I had stopped at, is that on purpose, would it have clicked? Would it have made sense? It wouldn't, the nuance would not have been captured. So you have to be able to check that box and say, yes, there is a joke there. I'm explaining the premise, I'm explaining the nuance. So hopefully using these components, and there's not a few, I mean there's millions, but these are some of the most universally used components. You can look for them in the comedy world and maybe even use them to create a few bits of your own. Thank you very much.